For that, let's bring in now, without no further delay, Thando Sibiya, sports journalist and presenter, joining us live. Thando, we've rolled out the red carpet for you as usual here, but I understand you've got to stay where you are for other commitments. So thank you for finding the time to talk to us. France, Sweden, clearly the pressure is on because this, of course, is a must-win match. No room for error.
No room for error at all. And I do think that the mandate for Les Bleus is clear, and it's to win. Make Didier Deschamps proud, and now we even include into the equation his late mother. But moving to business, I do think, even that was mentioned in the reportage earlier, that the defensive block of the French side is one of concern. We do know that they have one of the strongest front line in the whole tournament, in the world even. But I do think that that's something that they should look out for. Defensively, it's where they would have to check what's going on. They are without N'Golo Kante, who is injured, as well as Marcus Thuram. So that's a midfielder and a forward, but it's not like they're out of options. So I do think that coming into this game, you do have, like mentioned, the likes of Michael Olise, Ryan Cherki, Kylian Mbappe, Ballon d'Or holder. There's so many options. And so I do think that for them, the only objective is to perform. Then we switch to the Swedish side. When you look at coming into this encounter, we saw in the visuals, there was Victor Lindelof, who seems to be replacing Esekin, who has now dropped out of the World Cup due to an injury and actually underwent surgery earlier today. And due to a tendon injury that he sustained during the game against Japan, which ended 1-1 for Sweden, well, for both teams. So I do think that those are the kinds of changes we can see. Victor Lindelof having to drop into defense, having traditionally played as a midfielder, dropping into defense. So you do see a couple of forced changes. Whether or not it will work in their favor, the Swedish side, that's a big question mark. But it's not that they're a weak side that they're going to be coming up against France. They actually are quite strong and do have a lot of gravitas in the tournament. So I really am looking forward to this encounter.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Kante's missing. Perhaps it means that one or two gaps in midfield don't get sealed up like they normally would be sealed up by a player of that great energy. Sweden, as you say, they're not there by accident. They've got some real stars in the team who are capable of capitalising on the kind of errors you've been talking about if France leaves space in the back.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen how a lot of teams can be found wanting in those departments. We saw it with South Africa. Defensively, incredible, a masterclass, but all the opposition had to do was capitalize on one mistake, and then it was done. And in the dying minutes of the game. So the main thing is to stay in the game, continue momentum, game management, and also the substitutions are going to be very crucial. We've been seeing that Ryan Cherki comes on in the latter stages of the game. So perhaps to consistently have the engine running. You did mention N'Golo Kante, and his absence is also going to be felt because that is the engine. You need a creative midfielder. You need these 16 engine that's going to actually push the game, drive the game, be there for the pivot as well. When you have a defensive block that starts in the middle, you need a player who's going to be able to pivot and transition as well as he does. We've seen him since 2018. We saw him in 2022. He's had an incredible run. And I do think this also paves the way for a new continuity plan. So his absence is definitely felt. It's really unfortunate that he's injured, but this also makes room for the next midfielder to be coming in to then step to the occasion and perform.
Indeed. One person's misfortune is another person's opportunity. Let's put it that way. Now, talking of misfortunes and opportunities, let's reflect on what's happened to Germany and the Netherlands. Are we seeing, Thando, a different kind of recalibration of who's the boss in world soccer? But clearly, give us your reaction to the fact that Germany and the Netherlands are both out of the World Cup.
We are all immensely stunned. And actually speaking about things that are surprising, earlier on, you mentioned you weren't sure of the score between Cote d'Ivoire and Norway. Cote d'Ivoire just equalized, and it was a goal by Amad Diallo, who's been incredibly exceptional for this Ivory Coast side. So we are seeing a lot of surprises in this World Cup, especially from African teams, the quote-unquote underdogs. We saw how Morocco performed so brilliantly. Issa, who's coming in as a Senegalese, actually, of origin, and now signed for Moroccan side. So again, the nationality and the bi-nationality factors in. the diaspora factors in. But the really surprising thing, and I think one thing is to never underestimate the opponent. And I do think that that's what's been happening by the traditionally good teams, is that they got really comfortable in thinking that they understand how African football is played, understanding the tactics. But I just think there wasn't enough research or homework being done. So there's a lot of work for technical analysts to be doing in terms of understanding and really, really understanding how the opposition plays, because this is the result of what happens. You can even see the visuals. You're stunned. They can be found crying. Because really you have to understand the opposition, but you can only understand them so much. So if you're going to be basing their performance, say, for example, Morocco, if you're going to be basing their performance as a technical analyst on the research that you'll do from what they performed like during the AFCON, leave it. Because the team that performed during the African Cup of Nations in 2025 and the team that we're witnessing now at the World Cup completely changed. So you do see that there is a system that's happening, a conveyor belt, where they're just drilling and bringing out talent. And these players are exceptional. You see the style that they play. I did mention the importance of having a significant pace in the wings, the likes of El Khanous, to bring that pace, to bring the ball, help with transition. Defensively, they're strong. Up front, they're incredible. The finishing is done. And I think Morocco stands as one of the more technical sides on the African continent. We shifted to the likes of Ivory Coast, also technically and tactically really sharp as well. They have the physicality, which is how a lot of African sides have been described for many, many years. But I do think that now, as a tactical and technical, from that standpoint, I do think that yesterday's price is not today's price when it comes to the African teams. And I do think that they were heavily estimated, called the underdogs. Very little research was done. And look now, knocked out of the World Cup.
Indeed. Complacency. Some people saying that, people, I mean, I can quote Lothar Matthäus, for instance, the German footballing legend, saying that the German side lacked heart. Similar accusations put against the Dutch players. Ronald Koeman's now resigned, their coach. But coming back to what you're saying about African football, Thando, I think this is really, really interesting. The great Pelé once predicted that an African team would win the World Cup before the end of the century. That's the last century. He wasn't right, but are we sensing that things are going in the direction where we will see, perhaps in this competition, not just an African team in the last four, but maybe actually in the final? What's your sense on that?
I think it's possible. I think it's quite likely. I've been seeing the way these respective sides have been performing. It's really good football. They have the longevity, they have the depth. And I do think that it's very useful also that there's more international games that they are playing. And so they get to understand each other, have the synergy. You have experienced coaches as well. A lot of the coaches are going through the necessary coaching steps, getting the UEFA licenses, there's a lot of training that's happening on the continent, whether the other sides are aware of it or not. But I do think that there's been a long-running project where there's a lot of investment. I bring Morocco into this as an example again. As a hosting nation, they have a lot of infrastructure. They've built a lot of stadia. They invest a lot into football, into their development structures. You're seeing the results of it. I do think also having the movement of players to other countries to gain expertise not only gets them to learn expertise abroad, tactically, technically, but it also makes room for those who are still based in Ivory Coast, Senegal, Mali, Cameroon, to then rise in those structures as well. So there's just a lot of talent that is being brewed here. I am sometimes worried that it can make the industry a little bit saturated, but for now it's not a major concern. I just think that this should keep running, and I do think it's very likely for an African team to be in the final of this World Cup.
Thando, we're out of time. I wanted to ask you how you felt about South Africa and their performance, but I think we know. Quickly, tell us. I'll give it an extra minute. Tell us, how disappointed were you in South Africa?
I wasn't. I was so proud. I was disappointed that we lost, but I wasn't disappointed of their performance, because what was so beautiful about that, and I'll try to be concise, what was so beautiful about that is that we lost playing South African football. In the previous games, we were playing a different kind of football, playing for the opposition. And in this game, I witnessed what I see when I watch the Betway Premiership, or when I watch the Diski Challenge, or when I watch the Nedbank Cup, when you watch even the Champions League, the African Champions League. Khuliso Mdau, dribbling. We call it a spy too when it's actually a nutmeg. Seeing that in a World Cup, it's the confidence, the coolness, Megazeli Mbogazi, the clearance that he made at the line, goal line, and not even registering a red or a yellow card. Such talent was so beautiful to witness. And I think I speak for many South Africans when I say that we're proud. But on that subject, because I know that we don't have much time and it was in the breaking news earlier on, as a South African, I do think it's very important that we speak on the matter that's happening right now about the xenophobia crisis. And I do think that it's very unfortunate that this is happening. And I hope that in time, we're able to identify ourselves with the correct identity and that this can actually get better, because it's not okay to be doing this to our brothers and sisters of the continent. Structurally, there's a lot to be dealt with and a lot to be fixed. The government has a lot of work to step up to the plate. So while we're celebrating wins and all of that, I do think that there's a major crisis at home. And I do think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But I am here to say that we stand with our brothers and sisters and that a lot of things need to be done structurally to remedy this problem. And it's not just a South African problem, it's a continental issue, because the other governments as well have a lot of work to do so that they can ensure that even their respective countries become safe enough for their citizens to want to stay in. But there is an Africa for all, and I stand by it.
Thando, I've stolen a lot of time to give you the time that you needed to say all that, because it was extremely important. And thank you for being so clear and so eloquent. Thank you for your sports analysis too, telling us all about the soccer and how it's going and the big predictions. Thank you very much indeed. I hope next time you can come in and join us, because it's always a pleasure to have you in. Thando Sibiya, thank you very much indeed.